Thanks for staying with us. We are continuing our conversation on young boys and their mental health. We can't have this conversation without talking about technology, and here to help me do that is Chris Moody. Chris, thanks so much for being here. Chris is an active member of MAMA, which stands for Mothers Against Media Addiction, but of course the organization is for any parent that really wants to be mindful about how their child interacts with technology. So Chris, let's talk a little bit about that, and let's start by describing the mission of the group MAMA.
Sure, yeah. I mean, the mission is clear. We want kids to be able to enjoy being kids, not glued to a screen, but to be able to have real life experiences. And, so much of that, I think, resonates with parents nowadays because we lived a very different life than the kids today. You see kids with phones, you see kids with iPads, all kinds of screens. And even as parents, the first thing that we do is tend to give them those devices, right? They've become babysitters from a very early age.
As a convenience for us, right?
Exactly. So I think at this point, MAMA exists to be an outlet for parents to come together and say, you know what, I don't have to feel guilty for this. We need to figure out the best way forward for our kids to not just have to be able to have that device in their hands. And it's really not a good thing or a bad thing, right? There's no judgment here. It's not anti-tech, or there's a lot of good uses for technology. But, when we look at how these devices evolve and how kids age and how patterns develop, it's really becomes into play how they're used. And so that's where MAMA really exists.
Now you have 2 children.
I do.
A boy and a girl.
Yes.
You heard me earlier say how I remember my dad spoke to us differently. Do you talk to your children differently?
Yeah, I mean, look, like the other night we had a family movie night, right? And the kids, both my daughter is 7, my son is 10. They saw a phone, a landline phone, and they said, what is that?
What is that?
What is that? And so, that showed me right there the evolution of where we've come with communications in what doesn't seem like that long ago, right? So I would say, in terms of how we talk differently to them, there's a 3-year age gap, there's a boy and a girl, but I think in terms of my son in particular, he's starting to gravitate more towards friend conversations, and can I talk to my friends on my iPad and FaceTime? And so with that, we try, my wife and myself, try to get forth that message that whatever you put out in that space is there forever, right? And I think that's a very important thing, because you see it now with athletes that develop into professional athletes, and people race through and find something they wrote when they were 13 on a social media board.
We have reminders on Facebook all the time, right? They pop up for memories.
Exactly. So yes, and you can't wait to delete them, because it's embarrassing that you did that so many years ago. Now you look at the kids and you try to educate them the best you can to let's not get into trouble like that.
Right. Well, talk about the role that you see dads playing when it comes to the organization with MAMA, when it comes to keeping kids safe online, and these fathers have to talk to their sons, let's say, and when it comes to emotions and talking about those things, how do you talk to your son about emotions?
Right. And that's where I can see the difference between a boy and a girl, right? I coach soccer as well. Boys are a little more hardened and they don't open up as much, where girls will tell you anything and everything about their life, right? So I think in terms of that, when I look at my son, I try to connect deeply with him. I have a friend, which is actually what drew me into this group, a close friend that I grew up with, who told me that, he said, watch out for when your kids become teenagers, because social media is just horrific in that age range. And I asked him more about that. What do you mean? And he teared up, right? And he said, my daughter gets bullied relentlessly. She doesn't want to be in front of her friends. She's in front of other people that think of her in this way. They put pictures up of her that bring shame upon her. And, he's like, she's a sweet kid. She's my daughter. I think of her as my little girl, right? So I think in terms of stories like that, being able to share things that will connect with your kids, especially with my son, to say, hey, let's look at, other things that I know that have happened. Would you want to feel that way? And of course their answer is no, right? So it can't just be the generic, don't do this, don't do that. The more you tell kids not to do something, usually the more they want to do it. So you have to tell a compelling story.
Build empathy.
Exactly, that takes it away.
Okay. Well, Chris, we appreciate you being here with us. Really quick, if you can mention, for folks who perhaps want to get involved with Mama, how can they do that?
Sure. So they can go to joinmama.org. The other thing I'll mention with that is that at first, when I heard the acronym Mothers Against Media Addiction, I thought, oh, maybe I'm not to be involved, right? And then I went to a meeting and learned from speakers and the different engagements that they put on in the community and with schools that, no, this is open to mothers, fathers, grandparents, people that are close to the kids, people that want to make a difference. People tend to conform in areas like this, right? So if everyone can buy into avoiding social media till a later age, no phones in schools, it's more effective as a group.
And there's plenty of dads that belong to this group.
Absolutely.
All right, Chris Moody, thank you again for being here with us. On the Record, we'll be right back.